Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Res and I am a data scientist here in Germany. So in today's video, we are going to make a small NLP project, more specifically detecting important information from job descriptions. When I say important information, this might be education, skills, experience, soft skills, responsibilities, language, and domain from job descriptions. So NLP, or natural language processing, is one of the machine learning areas together with computer vision and predictive analytics. And NLP is a process of extracting information from a human language. So when the language is written, it's often called text analytics, and when the language is spoken, then it is often called speech analytics. So there are three concepts of NLP. We have NLP, NLG, and NLU. And NLP, or natural language processing, is a process of understanding human language based on written and verbal forms. So examples where it is used can be in machine translations, topic detection, text similarity, and many more. So NLU, or natural language understanding, is a subset of NLP. And it uses syntax like grammar rules and semantics like grammar structures, tone, etc. to understand the meaning of text. So example applications are sentiment analysis, NER, or named entity recognition, and relation extraction. And the third concept is the natural language generation, and it is still a subset of NLP, which enables computers to write human language. So it is a process of producing human language text from the input. An example of this is GPT-3, which is a language prediction model, and also text summarization, where you have a long text and then you use some algorithms to kind of like summarize this text. And the project that we're going to make is called NER, or named entity recognition, where you have a text or a sentence and you will train a model to predict the entities from the sentences or the text. So for the requirements of this project, first you should have a GitHub account so that you can clone my codes, because I'm gonna post it in my GitHub account, and also an editor. So this time I will use PyCharm. I will post the links of the two programs below, so you can just go there and register and also download. So guys, this is the task that we want to achieve. We have here a job description and we will input it to the NER model. The NER model will then extract the information we wanted to get, such as skills and education. So if you want to run it, the NER model will get the education and the skills from the job description. So right now I am in my data science project folder, and this is the folder where I'm gonna store the codes from GitHub. So first we are going to clone the codes from my GitHub. So open the Windows terminal and let's clone it using the git clone command. Go to the GitHub link in the description below and then just copy the link. And then let's paste it here. So now we cloned the codes from GitHub. So it's called skills detection, and we have folders, configs, utils, and some codes and requirements here. Next, we make a folder called data, and this is where we're going to store the data. And you can download the labeled data from the link that I provided below. So it's actually a link from my Google Drive. So let's download it and save this data to the data folder that we just created. Now that we have saved that data in the data folder, we are going to open our PyCharm and open, right now it's already opened, and open that folder called skills detection. So here we have three folders. We have the configs, the data, and the utils. The configs folder, this is where we're going to store the configuration file that we're going to use to train our model. And the data folder, obviously, this is where we're going to store the data. And then we have the utils folder, where it consists three main files. The data prep file, which contains all the codes for data preparation. And then we have the eda.py, which is the code for exploratory data analysis. And then we have the NER model prep.py, where contains the code for data preparation for the NER model. So before we install the libraries, first we have to create a virtual environment for this project, just because it's a good practice to isolate your projects in an environment. Now, if we look at the terminal, we can see that we are already in the environment that we just created, called skills detection tutorial. And we also have this requirements.txt, where it contains all the libraries that we are going to use for this project. So let's just install that. Let's just say pip install requirements .txt, and then it will install all these requirements from that txt file. So for the data exploratory side, again, we are going to make it very simple. We have here the eda.py folder, which contains the function that will give us simple exploratory data analysis. Yeah, so we are just going to count the frequency of each label and run it. And again, the folder is not edited, so let me do it. Yeah, so as you can see, the most frequent label is actually the skills that has 9,513, and the lowest label is the responsibility, which is 51. Develop is actually not a skills. I think this is just a bug, which I'm going to fix when you are going to run it on your own computer. So since we have very little data and the distribution is skewed, we can do data augmentation here. So data augmentation is a process or technique to increase the amount of data by adding slightly modified copies of the already existing data. So to increase the amount of your data, you can do the following. So you have the first option, which is the most obvious one, which is gathering more data. However, this requires more time, because the more you gather, the more data you will annotate. However, if you have the resources, I would suggest gather more data first before doing the other techniques. So the second technique in NLP can be in data augmentation in NLP can be synonym replacement. So where you can replace similar words with words with similar words. So for example, we have a sentence called "we need Python expert." We can replace it with "we need R professional," for example. So that's an example of synonym replacement. So a third option can be translating data using translation tools. So example, we can translate data from English to French and translate it back from French to English. So these are just examples of data augmentations for NLP. So now that we have installed the necessary libraries, we are going to prepare the data so that it will be formatted in a way spaCy requires it. So under the utils folder, we can see here the NER model prep.py, which contains all the codes necessary to format the data for spaCy. So we have different functions here. First, we have the load data function, which is going to load the data from the data folder and reads the NER JSON file. So by the way, if we look at the data, it's actually a dictionary with document and annotation as keys. So here are the two. The value of a document is actually the job description, and the value of the annotation is the start position and end position of the entity, the label of the entity, and the actual text. So for this example, the job description is the "we need Python expert," and here in this document, the the entity is Python and the label is called skills. The position of the word is actually starting from 8. So when I say position, this is the position. And the end is at 14. And the count actually starts from 0. So say 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the starting position. And this is the ending position. So going back to the file, we have this function called convert JSON. And in this function, we are just looping in all of the sentences and their labels and rearranging the format of the data from this format to this format. So that convert JSON is actually just rearranging this and changing the format. And we have this create training function. So the create training function is where the magic happens, because it is for converting the training data for use in spaCy. So here we are going to loop in our training data and look at the text and annotation. So the text here is the document or the job description, and the annotation here is the positions of the important word we consider as entity. So in summary to this function, it will get the text and annotation, get all the words that we labeled as entities, and serialize them and save it as a .spaCy format. So we have this create split data. So this function will just split the data into training set and validation set. And then we have this prepared data function that will execute all the functions above in the following order. So first, it will read the data from the data folder, convert it to JSON format, spaCy needs, and then serialize this information and save them as a .spaCy format. So we're just going to call the prepare data. So the first path here is actually the path of the ner.json file, and the training path is the output path. It's a bit confusing. I think it has to be named output path rather than training path, but I will change that later in my GitHub. So we're just gonna run this, and now Python is reading all the functions. And what you're seeing right now is the work of create training function. So it's just really converting these documents into docs and then serializing these docs and saving it to the doc bin class. So now we have the .spaCy formats saved in the data folder, and we're going to use this .spaCy data to train our model. So more information here, we just have little training data. As you can see, we just only have 497, and the length of the valid data is around 125. Alright, so now that we have our data prepared for training, let's go to spaCy documentation and copy the example code from the widget. So you can have it from the link I will provide in the description below. And this is the widget. So you can see here that Spacy provides some options for either selecting CPU or GPU hardware. It also provides you to choose between efficiency and accuracy. So if you choose efficiency, then it will be faster and Spacy will use smaller models. And otherwise, if you want to use accuracy, then it will be longer because Spacy will choose bigger models. Aside from that, you also have to click on what components you want to have in the pipeline. So for this example, we want to get the NER, and Spacy will automatically configure what is needed for NER. All right, and then let's copy this code here and save this to the configuration file. So I have already copied it, so we will just then save it from this config file and we will rename it as base config. So here is the base config. This is just a copy pasted configuration from the widget earlier. The next step is that we are going to initialize this base config file to autofill with the default values, and we can do that by doing the following commands. So after initializing the base config file and producing the config file, which is this file here, we can then add the path of our data. So in my case, if we open this, I will add this path. And for my validation data, this path here. So if you remember, these are the data that we prepared to be inputted for Spacy. Now that we have that, we can then train the model by calling the train command, and this will read all the settings from the configuration file and will save the train model under the models folder. So this is the command. So here you can see the loss, the F1 score, the precision, and the recall. So now the training is complete, and we can see here that we have a F score of 78, 81%, 81% precision, and 76% recall. So training is very easy in Spacy since all the hyperparameters, model implementation, pipeline settings, compounds and component models and initializations is inside the config file, which is the single source of truth in this case. And of course, you can change all the hyperparameters here if you want to, but for now, let's make it simple and just use all the default values. And you can see the model under the models folder, and in our case, we can use the model best. So now we can finally extract the skills and education from job descriptions. So if you go to the run and try it with this example and run it again, and here you go. Master is labeled as education, PhD is labeled as education, mathematics is education, physics. Some skills that are needed are machine learning, statistics, management, Python, R, Java, C++. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and please comment down below what you want me to do next. Bye!